What if Sparta wasn't just a city of warriors, but a sacred barrier built to contain an ancient darkness? A society shaped not by ambition, but by fear of something long forgotten and far more terrifying than any enemy. Why did entire Spartan cities vanish without a trace? And what secret force did Amyclae hold beneath its crumbling stones? Subscribe to Best of History and Mythology, leave a like, and hit the bell so you don't miss our final revelation in this journey through Sparta's darkest truths. As the years dragged on, visitors to Sparta began to notice a chilling transformation. The fierce discipline that once defined its citizens faded into listless routine. The once proud warriors moved like shadows of their ancestors, their eyes dulled, their speech hollow. Sparta was still a name feared across Greece, but within its borders, something essential, something vital, had quietly died. This decay was not sudden, nor was it marked by any grand catastrophe. It seeped in slowly like a poison. Young Spartans no longer endured the grueling trials of the agoge with the same ferocity. Public gatherings became fewer, sacred festivals less vibrant. The great messes, once bastions of loyalty and brotherhood, echoed with uncomfortable silences. Stranger still, accounts from foreign merchants and diplomats speak of a profound sadness that clung to the city like mist. Tales circulated of Spartan youth wandering into the hills and vanishing without reason, of elders muttering in fear of unseen watchers at night. No enemy had breached their walls because none were needed. The fall came from within. Some blamed wealth, others pointed to political missteps. But scattered among ancient poems and neglected temple inscriptions are darker hints. That an ancient pact had been broken, and with it, the very spirit of Sparta was slipping into oblivion. In remote sanctuaries once dedicated to Artemis Orthia, ritual altars were found abandoned, their sacred fires long extinguished. Stone carvings depicted not gods, but twisted forms half swallowed by vines and rot, as if even the divine had turned away. One particularly rare document, salvaged from the ruins of a countryside shrine, bears a cryptic lament. We stood when the gods demanded. We knelt when the earth remembered. Now we are neither. The vanishing of the Spartan spirit was not merely a cultural decline. It was the unraveling of a force that had once been bound by unspoken laws, older and more unforgiving than any human decree. Sparta had not been conquered by sword or siege. It had been hollowed out by forces that moved unseen, reclaiming what had once been temporarily restrained. Scattered across the once thriving plains of Laconia lie the remnants of Spartan settlements, abandoned without warning, left to crumble into the dust. Unlike cities devastated by war or famine, these ghost towns show no signs of violent conquest. Tools were left neatly stacked, hearths still held the ashes of their last fires, and in some homes, meals remained half-prepared, as if the inhabitants had simply vanished. Archaeologists puzzled over the sudden disappearance. No historical battles accounted for the emptiness. No plague pits suggested disease. It was as if an unseen force had swept through these communities, silencing life in an instant. Local legends, passed down by shepherds and isolated farmers, offer a more disturbing explanation. They speak of a time when the earth itself turned against the Spartans. Crops withered overnight under clear skies. Wells, once abundant, filled with dark, undrinkable water. And under the cold light of the moon, strange sounds, neither human nor animal, echoed through the abandoned streets. Excavations in these ghost cities uncovered curious anomalies. Household shrines overturned, symbols carved hastily into doorways as if to ward off some imminent threat. Inscriptions plead for protection, not from men or beasts, but from something nameless, something that could not be fought with shield or spear. Some fragments of ancient poetry hint that Sparta's ancestors had made a bargain with forces tied to the very land they conquered. As the bond weakened over generations, these forgotten powers began to reclaim their domain, pushing the Spartans out not with violence, but with a quiet terror that left no bodies to bury. The largest and most mysterious of these abandoned sites lies near the ancient village of Silesia. Here, an eerie pattern was discovered, streets aligned not for defense or efficiency, but according to celestial constellations no longer visible in modern skies, a haunting reminder that whatever drove these people away was bound to mysteries written in the stars themselves. The ghost cities of Laconia stand as silent witnesses to a collapse that history refuses to explain. Not through conquest, not through hunger, but through a slow, invisible force that stripped Sparta's heartland of its spirit and left only ruins behind. If your world was protected by rituals you didn't understand, would you continue them blindly or dare to break the silence? Let us know what you would choose. The answer may reveal more than you think. Throughout Sparta's long and brutal history, its kings were revered as living embodiments of strength, discipline, and divine will. Yet in the twilight of Sparta's power, an unsettling pattern emerged, one that hinted at a deeper fracture within the heart of the city-state. One by one, the Spartan kings fell into disgrace, exile, or mysterious deaths, often far from the battlefield where they once shined. Unlike other Greek states, Sparta's dual kingship should have provided stability. Instead, it became a stage for unseen forces to play out a slow, relentless dismantling of royal authority. Some kings were accused of corruption, others of cowardice, and a few vanished altogether under suspicious circumstances. Their trials were swift, their condemnations certain, as if predetermined by something more powerful than Spartan law. Archaeological evidence from ancient royal tombs reveals further anomalies. Several burial sites show signs of desecration, not by foreign invaders, but by hands that knew exactly where to strike. Tomb walls once carved with triumphant battle scenes were defaced, their inscriptions carefully erased as though attempting to sever the king's spirits from memory itself. An obscure text recovered near Mount Taygetus speaks of a curse of the double crown, a legend suggesting that the very institution of dual kingship carried a hidden flaw. If the sacred balance between the two kings faltered, it would invite ruin not just upon the rulers, but upon all of Sparta. Later, kings increasingly turned to foreign alliances, relying on Persian gold and foreign mercenaries, actions unthinkable to their warrior ancestors. Some historians argue this shift reflected political necessity. But an older theory persists in the margins of forgotten scrolls: that the kings, no longer protected by ancient oaths, became vulnerable to forces once kept at bay by rites and sacrifices now abandoned. The kings of Sparta did not simply lose their thrones, they were systematically stripped of the very power that defined their existence. Their strange fates mirrored the deeper decay of Sparta itself, a kingdom undone not by sword or rebellion, but by invisible betrayals written into the very foundations of its sacred institutions. If you're still with us, uncovering these final fragments of Sparta's forgotten truth, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Best of History and Mythology, and activate the bell so you won't miss our next explorations into the unseen side of history. Just a few miles south of Sparta lies Amyclae, a site once revered as sacred, its origins stretching back to a time before recorded memory. To historians, it was the location of grand festivals and temples devoted to Apollo. But recent discoveries suggest Amyclae concealed far more than simple religious devotion. Beneath its crumbling stones, layers of forgotten rituals and forbidden knowledge slumbered, hidden deliberately by those who feared what they had once unleashed. Excavations revealed that the temple of Apollo Amyclaeus sat atop an older, far stranger structure, one built with methods unknown to classical Greek architects. Massive stones, blackened and fused together as if by unnatural heat, formed subterranean chambers untouched for millennia. Within them, archaeologists unearthed objects that defy explanation. Ritual masks shaped like distorted human faces, sacrificial altars stained by substances that chemical analysis could not identify, and fragments of carvings depicting figures neither fully human nor divine. The few surviving inscriptions spoke in riddles. Phrases like "Keeper of the Silent Flame" and "Guardian" against the returning shadow appear again and again, hinting at a purpose beyond worship, perhaps containment. Local legends, still whispered among the oldest families of Laconia, tell of Amyclae as a gate, a thin place where the veil between worlds grew dangerously thin. It was said that long before the Spartans claimed the land, ancient custodians built great monuments not to honor the gods, but to seal away a force too terrible to name. Curiously, the ancient Spartans seemed to avoid extensive settlement directly around Amyclae, despite its fertile ground and strategic location. Priests managed the site, maintaining rituals whose true meanings had long been forgotten, continuing rites out of fear rather than faith. One chilling discovery deep within the ruins was a broken tablet etched with a single warning: "Disturb not the dust, for it guards the dreamers below." The secrets buried in Amyclae were not meant for human eyes. They were remnants of an older battle, a silent war fought not with armies, but with rituals meant to keep something ancient imprisoned beneath the soil. As Sparta declined, the vigilance that once kept those forces at bay weakened, and Amyclae, like Sparta itself, fell silent. Do you believe ancient civilizations were hiding something, or protecting us from something even older? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your theory might be closer to the truth than anyone realizes. For centuries, historians have struggled to explain the contradictions of Sparta. A society that shunned wealth yet craved dominance, that celebrated death yet built no monuments to the fallen, that avoided walls yet lived in constant readiness for war. Layer after layer of mystery has obscured the true nature of Sparta's existence. But when all the fragments are finally brought together, a chilling revelation emerges. Sparta was never designed merely as a city-state of warriors. It was a fortress of the spirit, constructed not against visible enemies, but against something far more insidious: the memory of an ancient catastrophe, older than Greece itself. The strange dual kingship, the brutal agoge, the forbidden rituals, the abandoned settlements, the unwavering adherence to oral laws, all these were not quirks of a militant society. They were strategies, crafted to contain a force that once nearly destroyed the human world. The unwritten laws were chains, the messes were oaths renewed nightly. The cult of death was not worship of war, but a pact to preserve discipline against a creeping spiritual decay. Sparta's original founders were not merely conquerors, they were custodians of a fragile barrier between humanity and the darkness that Amyclae barely contained. Their mission was to maintain a society so strong, so unyielding, that no breach could occur, because even a moment of weakness could invite disaster. As generations passed, the purpose faded into ritual, and ritual into superstition. When Sparta betrayed its own foundations, when pride, wealth, and fear took root, the old protections crumbled. The spirit of the city evaporated. Ghost towns littered Laconia. Kings fell not to enemies, but to invisible tides. The darkness they once held at bay reclaimed the land, slowly and without mercy. Sparta was not just a failed experiment in militarism, it was humanity's forgotten line of defense. And when that line broke, the world did not end in fire and conquest. It ended in silence, exile, and oblivion, just as those ancient founders had feared. When silence speaks louder than memory, history begins to whisper back. Thanks for watching. See you next time, here on Best of History and Mythology.